The following is an interview with Brennan Dunn. Brennan is someone who I have known for over 10 years and someone I admire professionally for his quality of thought and for his achievements so far in business. Brennan started a very successful agency early on in his entrepreneurial career, and he has founded multiple SaaS startups, his most recent of which is RightMessage. I personally and my company AutoGrow, soon to be rebranded as Grobo.com, something we'll talk more about another day, are customers of RightMessage. RightMessage solves the problem of marketing personalization on your website. It also helps in general to personalize within your email funnel. This interview is all about Brennan's story and his new book, where he gives expert, battle-tested tips that he himself has used. And this interview, I hope you find to be personal as well as very informative. And one final note, if you stay until the end, I will be giving a recap of my top 3 takeaways that I got from reading through Brennan's latest book. This is personal. I'm joined today by someone who I've known for 10 years, Brennan. Brennan is someone, for our audience's reference, who I've learned just so much from. I think I really began to understand, what does it mean to give value? Kind of the cliche saying at this point, but just what does it mean to give value in terms of content? He is more recently the founder of RightMessage.com, which is all about marketing personalization, which is what we're going to talk about today, including Brennan's book called This is Personal, which I'm about halfway through. I'm really eager to get into the nitty-gritty details of what you see that's working, what you've discovered over the years. But I'd like them to get a little bit of a sense of where you started and a bit of where you're at today in terms of what you've achieved in business so far. And feel free to not be modest.
I started out, funny enough, this is going to show how everything comes full circle. My first gig, which I started in college, I was hired by a mortgage broker on Craigslist to put together a landing page and run Google ads on his behalf. You pay for the ads, you do all the setup, you do everything. But then if you generate a lead for me, if I close that lead, I'll give you half of my commission for that lead. Me having no idea how I didn't know anything about the mortgage industry, didn't know anything about PPC ads or any of that stuff. I did it. And it was pretty wild because I realized quickly that I was spending a few $100 a month on ads, but I was getting him one client a month on average or so. And I was getting $4,000 each time he got somebody. I was thinking hey, this is cool. I could do this. So I started with a friend of mine, a company where we did that kind of at scale, where we thought we created basic template, show the person's photo, show their logo, put some boilerplate copy, have a little lead form. And we did that. But then I wrote some code that would allow us to personalize that page based on an individual mortgage broker in our database. So if you clicked on the ad and you're in state of Florida, you see a Florida mortgage broker, you see their logo, you see their photo, you see their name, you submit the form, that data goes to them. But then somebody else sees that same landing page and they're in Georgia, they see a Georgia mortgage broker, and so on. And so I built this thing that was an early version of what I'm doing nowadays with RightMessage. And funny enough, how everything comes full circle. Now my main focus is our website personalization software, along with a book on website personalization and segmentation, or I should say personalization and segmentation, not just website. So kind of what I was doing early on. And I've also recently started a new agency where we're doing that as a service. So I'm kind of back as an agency owner again. So the agency, which is recent, we turned over last month in August to 100,000. We've done well out of the gate, but we've done well because I'm leveraging the network I already built out. Because I've turned away so many people over the years with RightMessage who wanted the software, but they didn't want to learn it. They didn't want to, a lot of it requires strategy and things like that to do it right. Yeah, so I basically reached out to everyone who we've turned away and said, we can do it for you now. RightMessage itself, it's really at this point, it's just me running it. Depending on the month, can do 10, it can do up to 20 or 30,000 in revenue. So I've got a good diversification in revenue. Obviously the agency is doing incredibly well, considering it's so new. But yeah, enough to live comfortably.
Part of how you got into building SaaS products was we talked about it last time. You started bootstrapped, your first agency, and you grew it to 7 figures, but you just found yourself at one point, you told me, in a hotel room and just traveling, kind of burnt out, and you just wanted something different. And I share that just so people kind of know a little more of the story arc of your journey as an entrepreneur. One of the examples that you share in the early, I think, quarter of the book is Pat Flynn, where he is doing an A/B test with a non-personalized page and a personalized version of a sales page. And the power of personalization in that case, because he segmented based on, he had 5 questions. The biggest question was like, where are you at in terms of, your business journey? Are you a startup making, 0 revenue at the moment and you're looking to get going? Or are you an established business making much more? So he used that data. And as you shared, the result was a 2.38 times increase. So an additional, about 104, I think, additional $1,000, whereas he would have only made $75,000 on the launch, which still would have been a successful launch, but that's a big difference just from personalizing. Are there any other examples that are that you've seen maybe recently or in researching for the book that really stand out to you like that, just to kind of, where personalization just really made such a huge difference there?
On average, like we just did something for a big high profile creator who's a client of ours, and he's now averaging 21% more sales. What I tell people is it's not like it's a crazy growth hack. We're just saying, if you were to go all in on a certain niche, if Pat Flynn was to go all in on people who don't have a business yet, he would do really well with them. Like the results he got would have been similar to if he would have gone all in to just people just starting out and only focused on them, right? So all we're doing is we're saying niche websites, niche offerings, niche products, whatever, they perform better than generic products, right? Like double your design rate is going to be better for a designer than double your freelancing rate for a designer, right? Because that's going to speak to them as a designer. You're probably just going to have designer testimonials. You're going to speak design. Anything niche is for the intended audience will perform better. People want to buy the thing that was seemingly made just for them. So all we're saying, which is all we did with Pat, which is all we did with like all the examples that we have, are we're saying, okay, well, if you did go all in on this one segment of your audience, what would you say differently to them? How would you make it so you better relate to them and their needs? And so that's all we've done. It ends up being really simple. It ends up being exactly what I did when I was selling agency work more than a decade ago, where if you're a CTO and you work in finance or you have a startup in finance you want our help with, you better believe I'm going to be talking technical to you because you're a technical person. And I'm going to talk about every client we've ever had who had anything to do with finance, right? I'm going to name drop, I'm going to give examples and this and that. Whereas if I talk to somebody else later in the day, if you don't know anything about the startup world and you are in, insurance, I'm going to give you different examples. I'm going to speak differently to you. I'm going to talk about what we can do for you differently. So that's all we're helping people do, is exactly what you would do in a sales first driven business where you have a sales team, but bringing that to something like email marketing or to a sales page or something like that. So yeah, on average, usually 20 to 80% right now on Right Message, for instance, we're running a test and we're getting about an 84% increase in overall trials by doing things like showing different logos of clients we've helped, showing different language. If you use HubSpot, we talk all about HubSpot. It's not black magic. It's just it works because niching always is better than generic.
The power of marketing personalization, which, Right Message is a tool that really enables this in a way that wasn't enabled before, is if you think a lot of marketers and entrepreneurs, myself included, I just feel a little apprehensive about just going, niche. Like I know who our target audience is and I've experimented, but, I have the 5 kind of personas and I guess broader niches in mind, but I just haven't found that it worked for our brand. And I think other people, if I limit it, I'm going to limit my market, blah, blah, blah. Not necessarily true. But the power of this tool and marketing personalization is that it allows people to kind of potentially just multi-niche all at once. You could have one landing page that is niche and speaking to all 5 different segments. Yeah. So you can have the same product or service, but you can have almost all the same benefits without changing your product or service of selling in a niche style.
And you don't need to go extreme. I think people might hear what you just said and think, shit, I need to have like 5 different homepages, right? Like one for each persona. No, all you need to do is think, okay, well, we have a headline on our homepage, right? Say we're tracking 5 industries. 5 industries use AutoGrow, right? What headline would somebody in, I don't know, software want to see versus a course creator? What would need to be said differently to maybe it's not a headline. Maybe it's got a big featured testimonial. Like if I'm a course creator, I want to see a course person you've helped. If I'm a software person, I don't care at all that you've helped course creators because that's not me. I want to know how can you help software companies? So show me somebody like me. And that's the thing, like the rest of the website can be the same. You don't need to go and like redesign and rewrite everything. And I think that's the false assumption people make is with this, it's just about piecemeal small changes. It's like when I sell a client, when I was doing a lot of consulting work, most of what I said was kind of the same across every time I'd pitch somebody. It's just I'd use like maybe different examples or something. And that's kind of what we're getting at. It's just depending on what kind of business you run. Are you in software, e-commerce, services, or digital products? We're going to show different logos to you. We're going to show different content, different benefits stuff that align to you and your needs. And then also depending on your email platform. So if you are a software company who uses HubSpot, you go to Right Message. And we know this because we survey and we look at behavioral things. So if you come to us from HubSpot's integrations directory, or you land on our HubSpot integrations page from Google, we then assume you're a HubSpot user. So you move around the site, we have a little micro survey that comes up. Hey, which one of these are you? Oh, I'm a software business. I click that. And now when I see all the language, not just the pop-ups, not just the like buttons, but a lot of micro things, like any mention of your email platform is now HubSpot. When we have our integrations area, big, bold, integrates with HubSpot, headline type thing. And that's what we've done to make it so we want it to be that if you're a software business and use HubSpot, you're on our site, you're thinking this is what they specialize in. Well, that's not true. We also can work great with you if you're an active campaign user who sells courses, or if you're a coach who uses ConvertKit. All of them we equally help, but we realize if a software company sees a bunch of coaches as testimonials and sees language about coaching, they're going to be like, this isn't for us. And they're going to bail.
One of the most common sales objections that we hear on calls with clients is, show me more examples from businesses like mine, or show me case studies for businesses like mine. It makes sense whether you're hiring a tool to do a job for your business and you're going to use the tool yourself, or you're hiring someone to do professional services, whatever it may be. The ideal person to hire is usually someone who has hands-on experience, having already done that thing for someone else, who's also similar to you, or another business that's the same type of business as you. It's super powerful in that way. And we did an update to our article about survey funnels. And I want to ask you in a second, how would you define the difference between a survey funnel? Because what I've recommended to our audience is the same thing that I've seen work incredibly well for us. And it's the same thing as personalization marketing, which is at least ask like two questions as far as segments. They are, who are you? So identity, and what is your biggest problem? Mm-hmm. And you say the same thing in This Is Personal, and it works. It absolutely works. But are there any other questions like that you would recommend? And how would you define the difference, if there is one, in terms of versus a survey funnel definition?
So when we started out with the Right Message, we only did personalization, and it failed. And it failed because we expected you to have the data. We expected you to know, we can say, depending on your industry, show a different case study. The issue was people were like, well, I don't know what industry somebody's in, right? Because all they had in their email platform was their first name and email address, and that was all they collected. So that's why you absolutely need to be collecting what it's called zero-party data through a survey. So you can then attach that information, like you mentioned, Matt, to their record in your email platform, so that you can then send better emails and pass that info on your website when they're going to buy, to say, hey, if your problem is X and you are Y, here's how we help X for Y, right? That's basically what you want to be able to achieve. Yeah. So it's kind of the yin and the yang, right? Like you need segmentation, you need survey data. Usually you can segment in other ways. You can say, natural segmentation would be if they opt into a lead magnet about starting a business, you might be able to safely segment them as a new business owner. Likewise, if they join, or if they, like what we said, if they come to us from HubSpot's website, we can probably safely assume they use HubSpot. But if they come direct, we have no idea. So that's where surveying can be a really really nice fallback. And we do this. We ask people when they join our list, hey, so what are you struggling with at the minute? Oh, I want to better grow my audience. Cool. What email platform do you use? I use HubSpot. Cool. How experienced are you with this? So when it comes to, you asked about like, what should you ask and things like that. My recommendation for almost everyone is when somebody joins your list, post opt-in, instead of showing them a little thank you message that says check your email, ask then and there questions that you can then synchronize what you learned directly up to their newly created contact record. So they join your list, they want to get your emails, great. Why did you join? So the who and the why. Why did you join and who are you? And that can devolve into quite a few different questions, because typically speaking, we have the data to show this. If you're asking questions that are easy to answer, so you're not asking loaded questions, they're not fill in the blanks, they're very easy push button, like which one of the following 4 things are you? They tend to get about a 98% response rate after, like if you answer question 1, the likelihood of you answering question 2, 3, and 4 is above 98%. The average likelihood that somebody will answer anything is 85%. So if you do a really nice post opt-in survey where you're saying, hey, thanks for joining. I want to make sure I can send you exactly what you want and nothing more. Would you mind taking a minute or two to share a bit about why you're here and how I can best help you and who you are? And you have just multiple choice survey. They click the button, syncs up to their new record. You then send them personalized welcome emails. You do all that good stuff we've been talking about. That works exceptionally well. You'll get the majority of people, the overwhelming majority of people who join your list. You'll be getting more than just a first name, more than just an email address. You'll know why they joined, who they are, and so on. In terms of what to ask, it depends on what you do. We have a client now who's in the health space. They're asking questions about, do you want to lose weight? Do you want to gain muscle? Do you want both? Why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want to gain muscle? What is the intrinsic motivation? Oh, I want to perform better. I want to, live longer so I can be with my kids. Do you travel a lot? He gets all this data so that then if you travel often and you are a busy professional and you want to lose weight, the emails he sends you, the content he sends you is going to be dialed in on how a busy person who's traveling all the time can lose weight. But if you want to build muscle and you hardly travel, if you get those emails, you're going to be disengaged because that's not speaking to you. Ask what makes sense for you to get, not just for the sake of having it. That should be what you're using to determine what to ask and why.
We were just using forms and ActiveCampaign before WriteMessage came out, and you can do it that way. I'm personally a customer of WriteMessage, and I recommend it. It's a very powerful tool, and it actually, I think, saves time and allows you to personalize on the website in addition to the emails, among other benefits that come with it. But is it just a matter of execution, or are there some bigger, more advanced insights or any surprises that you found from implementing marketing personalization for your own companies, your own brands, or for clients? Because I was thinking about this question, before we started this call. What has been surprising to you, and or just powerful tactics or insights you've learned from doing this repeatedly now and having WriteMessage and having access to all this data and feedback and whatnot?
Yeah, great question. What I've learned, I think a lot of people are concerned with like, am I prying if I ask questions of my audience or whatever else? And I think what's become increasingly clear is that if you're using data for good, if you're using what you collect to give somebody, as I like to describe it, more signal, less noise, more relevance, less distraction. They want to help you do that, right? Like, I don't want to go to Netflix and see a bunch of stuff I don't care about. I want to see stuff that I care about. I think if you look at yourself as a curator of content, a curator of information, a curator of whatever, your job is to say, I know my audience. I know what I have to offer. The hard thing, I think, is thinking through the strategic elements of like, well, what do I want to say differently to somebody who's in this persona versus that persona? And that's usually the hardest thing. The hard thing is not using a tool like WriteMessage. The hard thing is thinking, what do I say differently to them versus this other group? So I think that's still the thing that is a tough nut to crack. But that being said, we've seen a lot of customers, we haven't done this ourselves yet, but we've seen a lot of customers who are using things like ChatGPT to be able to say, hey, given my headline and given these 5 industries, redescribe this headline to make it individual for each industry, right? And the GPT can do that in like a second. And then they're like, great, okay, this is good enough. This is maybe needs some tweaking, but now they can go and say, okay, if they fit this profile, show this headline, that profile, show that headline. And that's been really cool seeing like just how that's been able to enable so many new things. But I think the biggest thing is just like the fact that a lot of companies who are primarily sales first organizations, they have a sales team. When they see this, it's implicitly obvious to them why this makes sense. People don't just buy directly based on a sales call. They buy when they look at the website later. Maybe they don't actually buy from the salesperson who calls. Maybe they're buying on the website or something like that. And if we can somehow transfer the knowledge that we've learned about somebody to the website and say, hey, we know X about them, so let's dial in on X and really focus on why this will help them with X. That works so well. And at first I was like, is this more of a parlor trick? Is this something that actually is useful? Because it's cool being able to say, like, as a developer, let's show different testimonials and stuff. But what's been most impressive, I think, is being able to see, as we started to roll out A/B testing, built into this, where the control is the default text, your current website's text. And the variant is the personalized content for the visitor. When we've seen what impact that's had, that 20 to 80% on average increase. When we've seen that, that's when we've realized, wow, this is like not only cool, it's not only something that's an interesting challenge, but the biggest realization has been this stuff works. And that makes me very happy to see that it does work.
It makes total sense. It's like having a salesperson and just the logic of it. If you were selling one-to-one to anyone, you're going to personalize that pitch and you're just going to try to frame it for them. That's what I've always done. That's what you've always done. That's what everyone always does. But now you can do it at scale with a tool like WriteMessage. And if people want to check it out, it's writemessage.com. And the book is This is Personal. And final question, Brennan. The title of the book is This is Personal. Is business personal for you?
When people ask for a refund, I still get very sad about that. When people write in saying that I've helped transform their life in some way, shape, or form, I get very happy about that. So yeah, it's very personal in that sense, right? I have not detached my own feelings personally from what I do day to day.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview with Brennan Dunn. Hope you took notes. Now, I want to conclude this video by giving you the top 3 most valuable takeaways from Brennan's book. These aren't necessarily beginner. Frankly, I don't think most people need beginner tips anyway, because we all kind of know, okay, if you create content, it's about creating value, building rapport, and hopefully catalyzing a relationship or some interest in whatever product or service you're interested in. We all get that. So with that being said, here are my top 3 takeaways. So the first one is empathy plays a crucial role in connecting with your audience and understanding their pain points. What does empathy actually mean? Empathy means, I think part of what has helped me to be a reasonably effective copywriter. I am an entrepreneur, but I also, just in terms of skill set, consider myself a copywriter. I've done a lot of it. I've done a lot of copy editing as well. I think empathy is where you have an inner desire in the context of marketing to satisfy the reader. If you have an agenda of just making sales, just throw that out. Because what I have found from one-on-one sales especially is when I would get on calls where I just wouldn't care about actually closing the sale. And I would focus instead on, is this person even a match, first of all? And then if yes, then and only then would I start selling after that point. But I wouldn't even be selling still in a way. I would really just be focused on the prospective customer or client and just really understanding how are they approaching this? What are their needs in this situation in terms of information or comfort? If you take a similar approach in terms of writing and creating content that will connect with your audience, I think this is really critical in terms of not only creating just an effective email sequence or better copy, but of course it also applies in terms of marketing, personalization, and knowing how to segment your audience and then how to speak in slightly different ways to the individualized preferences and pain points and questions of each of those different segments. Second big takeaway is continuously adapting and learning from your customers' feedback can help you improve your email marketing and marketing personalization strategy. Just like the previous one, I'm going to unpack this because just saying the sentence, it's like, okay, I think for a lot of people, if I was in your shoes, again, being empathetic, a lot of people just don't actually have some sort of a mechanism in place to do this. It's like we all know a lot of this stuff. A lot of people watching this may already know some of this stuff, like just generally speaking, but most people, they just don't do it because this mechanism for continuously updating, said personalization within your funnel, personalization, or just even a basic email sequence, you're going to be able to evolve with the market because market shifts, having been an entrepreneur since I was 19, 17 years now. AutoGrow has been in business over 13 years. Very proud of this. Part of what I have seen over that long period of time is that the market is constantly dynamic. It's constantly shifting. One example of a mechanism that I used with one of my first email sequences that was incredibly valuable. I had this email sequence. It was educating people about, forming marketing partnerships. And at the end of the email sequence, I would invite people to hit reply and even to book a call with me. I did that as an extra value add, and I would talk and communicate back and forth with people who were in the market, and I would get deeper insights, and I would be able to use those insights, just like little things that you would not get from looking at clicks and open rates, or even often just, what people would type in reply to you, because a lot of even deeper insights you can get from individuals talking one-on-one, face-to-face. So continuously adapting and learning from your customers' feedback, yes, it's obvious, but tactically, you actually have to do it to get a result, and you have to understand, then how are you going to deploy that in an ongoing fashion. The third and final key takeaway that I found most compelling is offering a transformative experience through, for example, your marketing emails in order to show the benefits of engaging with your brand or making a purchase. What does that mean? Offering a transformative experience. And this is one of the more subtle and more advanced strategies that a lot of marketers who are successful, like Brennan, employ. It's a bit like a story arc from the state of being in tension, problem, wanting to solve it, desiring to solve it, pain, to solution. When it comes to an email automation sequence that can be very effective, you are essentially telling the customer, the prospective client, the story of him or herself. And if you're doing it in a way that they relate to, where you are describing their feeling, where you're describing a situation that is similar, that they relate to, that they see themselves on the page or in the video, that is usually one of the first hooks. Ultimately, if you're selling like a SaaS sort of product or a high ticket, you have to have some sort of emotional connection. It can't just be all tips and logic. The content, like in your mind, when you're reading it as the consumer, you are much more open to an offer type of message, especially if, the offer is highly relevant to the exact same problem and transformative experience that was just described in said emails, where you could actually go out and get results on your own from the emails. But why would you do that if you could just use the SaaS tool, productized service, consultative service, high ticket service, which could get you from point A to point Z, which is the solution, 20%, 50%, or 10 times faster. So that is what's meant by employing a transformative experience strategy in terms of your content. So what did you think of this format? What did you think of the interview? Please leave a comment if you're watching this on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Be sure to like and subscribe as well, so that we know to keep producing content like this. Thank you so much. Thank you to Brennan. And as always, keep auto growing and stay focused.